Hello and welcome to NewsX. Today we are talking on the sports law and management. Joining with me is Michael Kasprowicz, who is a former Australian bowler as well as he is a member of Cricket Board of Australia. Joining also with me is Shaun Star. He is an assistant professor and with India-Australia studies. Sir, cricket, wrestling, boxing and any other sports today in India is reimagined and rebranded as Super or Pro. And this series of leagues in India are more than 20 today, and billions of dollars are involved into this. How big this is to India?
Yeah, well, I think that it's the epicenter of the business of sport, and India can showcase the impact of the business of sport better than any other country in the world, due to the speed of all these professional leagues and also the standard of competition. So sports law and governance is one of those segments that steps outside the usual sport, I suppose, understanding of coaching and commentating. And the governance of our game of sport is so important. We're seeing the benefits of that from an international perspective, and with India putting some policies in place, and that's currently happening. You're seeing that right from the grassroots all the way to the top leagues.
Well, right from the grassroots, if I'll talk about, you have been involved into cricket from 17 years of age. You've been playing cricket for 17 years of age. From there to now, you have seen a contribution towards the law and governance and change of sporting policies. Do you think, at the age of 17 or 18, when the youngsters play cricket, from there on the law should be taught to them and from their schools as well?
Well, I think you're just living the dream. If you're selected when you're 17 years old and at high school to play cricket for Queensland, which was my state, which I was, you're not too interested in anything other than going and bowling and getting wickets and hopefully scoring some runs. But I think it's being aware, and the level of professionalism in our sport, across all sports now, has certainly increased. You mentioned when I started, it was non-professional. And through my cricket career, living through a semi-professional and into the beginnings of the full professional era, was certainly interesting to that journey along the way, and to be involved in the administration of sport and putting the right platforms in place for our new young talent to come through and certainly enjoy it. There is an education involved, certainly around welfare, and we are seeing the benefit of all that.
Shaun, you are here from the last 7 years in India. You have been teaching students the law and the governance in different fields. But now sports, your impact, how this, if Indian perspective is considered, the sports law is still in the pipeline. There are a lot of loopholes in the law, where we've seen, in IPL also there is batting scandals and fixing scandals came out. How different will be if sports law and governance with collaboration with the Australian University in India will come?
Oh, look, I think it can make a huge difference. I agree with Michael that it's such an amazing climate to be working in sports law and governance. In an Indian context, sports law globally is worth over $700 billion US. India is fast becoming a sports superpower in many leagues, as you've alluded to. We have hundreds of millions of spectators and fans watching sports during all of these leagues, whether it's kabaddi, whether it's cricket or otherwise. So we're hoping with the University of Queensland and Jindal Global Law School to train the next generation of global sports lawyers, in fact, not just India's sports lawyers, because this is a global phenomenon, and India can leave its mark in this space.
What exactly will be in this syllabus? What exactly will be in this law and governance policies? What we will be there with, in the sports law and governance, particularly to the students of India?
So it's a very interesting course which spans over the course of about 10 days, and our students will be learning everything from torts and injuries of players and spectators, to anti-doping, to integrity and corruption in sports. And then of course we go to the commercial aspects like sponsorship, athlete-agent relationships, which is a huge issue in both jurisdictions in fact. And we finish off the week with broadcasting, entertainment and intellectual property rights. So it's a full spectrum, if you will, spanned over just a short period of time, where we teach students a number of issues that pertain to both the policies of sport and governance of sport and the commercial aspects of sports law as well.
Michael, he pointed out one of the very interesting concept, that the sponsorship and the marketing which comes into the sports. We have seen IPL coming into the India, Big Bash League in Australia, whooping so many crores, and millions of crores are involved, dollars are involved in this particular leagues. Also, then including entertainment into this, you have been a part of different leagues as well. How different it is from your era when you played for Australia, and then now coming to IPL when huge money is involved. How is this different?
There's a lot more zeros in the numbers that of take-home pay. Certainly of eyeballs that end up watching the game as well. So I think that's where the biggest change is not only the professionalism on the field as far as the skill and the execution of those skills, but it's off the field. I think we've seen that. And I'm heavily involved with India. I like to say my 19-year love affair of India has me coming to India 4 or 5 times a year in a number of different capacities. But I've seen the change and really watched in wonder of professional sport here. Companies like Reliance taking on sport in an ownership capacity, but also delivering, which is really exciting. And I think it maybe echoes and symbolises young India at the moment. The rise of India, and sport is the perfect vehicle to do that, to illustrate it, because when you think about it, really sport is got a real fabric in society, but also its role in society as far as wellness and health, but also inspiration, and certainly with an Indian cricket team as strong as they are, that's been the case.
Suddenly, and 16,347 crores is what the Star has backed the IPL rights for the next 5 years. Yeah. That's something which had never been in the history of the Indian cricket. And earning 3.5 crores per week in the IPL, and from football where Messi earns 3 crores per week. So this is something which is huge. And how this management is going to be coming in when this law will be coming?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a perfect example of the business of sport and where India fits in the world as far as not only just the economy, but also in the growth and the opportunity. So we're really excited to be here with the University of Queensland. I am particularly because not only am I involved in this course with Jindal in sports law and governance, but having successfully completed an MBA at the University of Queensland. I personally like to think that I can provide an authentic and unique perspective as a player, but also an administrator in the game, but also from both perspectives and lenses of practical experience, but also theory.
So what basic difference you see between Australia and India, where there's governance and the law is considered? What basic difference you see? I'll ask this question both to you, sure, as a player and as a professor.
Well, I think in Australia we've been in that environment for a long period of time now, and what I do know about India and with the growth of India, it looks at Australia in a number of different sectors, particularly as for a solution, and sport is one of those sectors, and I think with our relationship both on the field and certainly off the field, it's growing. There's the opportunity to share our learnings and with courses and schools like as wonderful as Jindal School of Law is in developing local talent. I mentioned on the field we talk about coaching and the techniques and technologies, but off the field I think it's even more important.
As a professor, what do you think, sir?
I agree with Michael wholeheartedly. I think there's a lot we can actually learn from each other, and these sorts of collaborations which the Centre of India-Australia Studies hopes to bring together from Australia and India means that we can compare and learn. I think commercially the IPL has been running now for 10 years and it's been a success story in an Indian context. So India should and will indeed celebrate that from an outcome perspective. And as a result of these leagues, and now of course Kabaddi League, ISL and many other leagues that are sprouting up, sports law and governance is improving from a commercial perspective. I think at a policy level there's still a lot to be desired, and many would agree with that. For instance, we need not look further than the Lota report that's out now and the recommendations made by the Supreme Court of India and how they are being implemented so as to improve at a policy level sports law and governance in India. And of course issues such as anti-doping in an Indian context, where India has been ranked third in the world 3 years in a row from a doping perspective. So these are issues we want to compare and contrast in the context of the sports law and governance course, and talk through with our students about ideas of how things can be improved in both jurisdictions.
Well, certainly a big change that is coming through, Michael. Now you have already had you have talked about on the field and off the field conversation. We have seen India and Australia, and right now India and Australia series is going on, and India has already defeated Australia for the 2 matches in the first upcoming, and India has rose to the #1 ranking for ODI. On the field and off the field, India and Australia have the most anticipated series. And sledging is something which India and Australia has always been a part of. And you were also a part when when Australia came to India, and there was a huge controversy. What do you think? There must be some rules and policies regarding this also, where ICC should bring their rules into this.
Well, there are. There's the umpires on the field are watching behaviour very closely, and certainly as match referees. But what you do have to remember, and what not many people realise, is that with the IPL and over the last 10 years, a lot of the Australian players come and play in the IPL teams. So what we're actually having is the players tend to know each other very, very well. They're living together for 8-10 weeks a year playing IPL. So it's almost like your fiercest battles are against your brothers, and you know each other so well that deep down that, so I'm sure off the field it'll be a totally different appearance, I suppose, and certainly appreciation of each other. But as I mentioned, when you're against your best friends and relatives, you find that that's often the biggest battle.
So do it create some difference just because Australians are coming to India, and almost when we heard from Steve Smith, from Michael Kasprowicz, they always say 3 months or 4 months we spend in India, and we know very well, and we know a lot of Indians very well, a lot of Indian players very well, from personal level to the professional level while playing cricket. So does this create any impact on the cricketing, on the playing when they play on the field, just because they know better conditions of India?
Well, I think that's the beautiful part about IPL, is that international players get the opportunity to come to India and play. And you only learn by doing. I think we all do as cricketers, and the more doing, the more matches, the more game time you have in these different conditions will dictate how successful you are. And you certainly improve over time, there's no doubt about that, because at the international level, the key between good days and your bad days is your ability to adjust to those conditions.
Well, whom do you think is the better captain? I will just straightforward ask you, Stevie Smith or Virat Kohli?
Well, for Australia, Steve Smith definitely, and I think for India, Virat Kohli.
Not MS Dhoni?
Yeah. Well, MS Dhoni is as legendary, and I think even playing with Steve Waugh, one of Steve Waugh's characteristics as a leader was he was able to lead by example, and I think MS Dhoni is that type of player. Stunning comebacks on the field, and his ability to save India from certain circumstances and situations. So he does that, and he leads by example by that. I think Virat Kohli is going down the same line. His record is unbelievable.
Where do you think this Australia right now is, Australian cricket, just because lost to Bangladesh in Bangladesh for the first test, and then coming to India now? Ashes is also which is the coming series for Australia. Do you think it's going in a good way for the Australians?
Well, you prefer to be winning every game, of course, but when you've got some new players coming in, it always provides some challenges, trying to find the right balance, and even coming to India with the different conditions, and we saw even in Eden Gardens the humidity. You'd see it just with some of the players having to be out there bowling and even fielding was very, very different from what you normally face in Australia. So that adjustment takes time. In limited overs cricket, you don't have a lot of time to adjust, and it's all about adapting to those conditions.
Particularly talking about the bowling of Indian cricket team, you have been a part of different leagues, and you have been a part of Australia as well. Do you think this Indian side, which is bowling right now, this bowling side is the best bowling you have seen till now? Just because we are seeing throwing Australia for all of the series.
Well, the Indian bowlers have been impressive, I think, with both spin and also the quicks. It's about adjusting your skills. That's fundamental to it, and over a long season, a long year, and the amount of cricket we play now, it's about your roster, how many players, the backup players that can come in and preserve your talent. So that will be the interesting part for India.
Well, we have already talked about the commercial part of these sports. Now, coming to the commercial part, we are already seeing IPL for the senior men player. Now, there is already a Big Bash League for women in Australia. Now, BCCI is already planning to come up with the women's IPL in India. Is this a good choice of India?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the best things that can possibly happen. And out of the T20 Women's World Cup, played at Lords with England playing against India. Unfortunately for India losing, it got attention, and that's what we've done in Australia. We've actually, for the number of last couple of years, have invested significant money, and we are going to invest a lot more into the pay equity model, and certainly through our Big Bash, the Women's Big Bash, we're seeing a pathway for not only women and girl cricketers, but for athletes to come in to represent your country. And in a country like India that certainly loves cricket and has the passion for it, I think it's going to be fantastic.
Well, final question, do you think Australia can come back in this series?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think with the players being exposed to a lot of T20 cricket over the years, and certainly the talent that's in that side, anyone can come out and have their day. Certainly the Australian team's filled with those sort of players, and we'll just hope that they can do that in the next 3 matches.
Well, thank you so much, Michael Kasprowicz and Shaun Star, for talking exclusively to NewsX on the sports law and governance, and as well as the management part of these sports, which is going to be one of the biggest industries in the country. Thank you.